Hi everybody, Creative Katie Karen Burchill here, and you are looking at the project that we will be doing in this video. I had so much fun making these little mini zines that I started looking for other things that I might like, and I came across envelope flip books. And this is one version of them. Now, in the videos that I was watching, they would use the envelopes, assemble them the same way, but they were gluing on scrapbook papers. Now, one, I don't own scrapbook paper, so I thought, okay, I could use jelly paper, but I don't like cutting and measuring and that kind of thing. So I thought, I wonder if somebody's done it with paint and stenciling, has done it the mixed media way. And I couldn't find any videos on that, and I thought, okay, well, then I'm going to do that. I'm going to see if this works. And it does. So I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed creating this envelope flip journal. For this project, you need 3 envelopes. I'm using 5" by 7.5", but any size would work. I'm also using one that has what's called a square flap, but the contour flap, I Googled, which is triangular, works as well. So step 1, you're going to apply base color. And I chose to apply base color to the fronts and the backs of the entire envelope before I assemble it. You could attach the envelopes together first and do it that way. I don't know what the pros and cons of that would be, but this worked relatively well. And I was kind of learning as I went here. Now I chose to do pretty much the same colors on all the envelopes. And the reason for that is I wanted a cohesive look, and I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to embellish the pages and what I was going to do with them. So I just wanted to keep my options opened and focus on that part of this project as opposed to the colors. And if you watch my videos, you know I'm in my happy place when I'm using these bright and bold colors. I'm just putting them on, and you can see the base coat is just really quite messy. I'm blending the paints together right on the envelope. Now here I was testing out how the envelopes would respond to having some wet medium on them, and they actually handled it really well. I did, after I put the one layer on the one side, I did let it dry before I put the other one on. So I did allocate a little bit more drying time or wait time in between. And for the purpose of the video, I've sped this up. Now, this is not a project that typically you're going to sit down and start and get right to the end. There are lots of components, and there was lots of parts of this that I've done figuring out outside of the actual filming. So when you assemble it, you open up the one on the left-hand side. You open up so the flap is there, and I'm going to take the other envelope, and on the back of the flap, and put the glue as you saw me doing, and I'm going to slide this in to here. Now I just used glue stick, and it seemed to adhere perfectly well, but you could use other adhesives that you like to use. You want a good solid seal. You want this to stay together firmly. And one of the tricks that I have learned is sometimes to use a brayer to make sure you have that perfect contact. Also putting glue on both surfaces also helps. So now you have that flap sticking out, and you're going to glue this right here. Now leave a tiny gap in there, and that's because there will be pockets in this envelope journal that you can put stuff in that is going to make it kind of bulk up, and you want a little bit of wiggle room. So I put the glue down there, and I'm putting this envelope on here. You can see where the flap is, and I'm using the brayer to get good contact. Closing it up, and there's the flap going over to the front. The back is completely sealed. I'm checking the edges to make sure. Adding a little bit of glue just to get it just so. So there is the base color applied to it. Now here we have a pocket. Here we have a pocket from the envelope. And then we have a pocket on the last page on the side where the flap is. So the next step is to add pattern, and I'm going to add pattern using stencils and stamps. So the stencils that I'm using here, I will list them in the description box below. This one's Fantasy Tile, and I often start stenciling with white. Then I put colors, and then I come back to black and white. This one's called Dash V, Retro Burst, and I'm using the same colors and then adding black and white, the same colors that I've had in the background. I'm not really introducing any new colors. And I'm just having fun with patterns and stencils and stamps here. I'm really not thinking about what focal images I'm going to use. I'm just having fun. This is a great time to grab out old stencils and stamps and use them. Here I'm using some homemade stamps with black acrylic paint. After drying it, I'm just adding, stencils of different sizes. Some are larger scale, and this one is a smaller scale. I like having that variety. And here's where I've come back to the white. Now, if you make a mess with the stenciling, because everything's acrylic underneath, you can grab a baby wipe and clean it up and start fresh. I'm loving, loving, loving the background. So there's the flap. And now I'm moving to the next section, and I'm going to stencil on it. Now, for the most part, I'm using different stencils on each section of this flip book. But there are some stencils that I'm using on the other pages to build that cohesiveness in. And again, the cohesiveness is there because I'm using the same basic colors. But you could choose to do it all different colors and all different ones, and you'll get a different feel of the book. So the first one was Dash V. This one is Peacock Doily. This is another favorite screen view. And again, these will be listed in the description box with links if I can find links. All many of the 6-inch stencils can be purchased at Ninny's Napkins. There's a discount code in there. as well as TCW. So I used screen view in the middle one. Now I'm using it on the last section. In effect, we're doing multiple art journal pages. So don't expect that you're going to get this done in one session. Don't put that pressure on yourself. Lots of times I use the same stencil, different colors. And I'm using this dot stamp, one of my favorites. It is a staple for adding black dots or white dots on my pages. This is called Petal Burst. And I'm adding some black paint through here. So now that everything is assembled, the flap goes across the front. Now this flap, I could just adhere, close it up. I could tuck it in permanently so that I still have access to this flap, or I could leave it how I have it with this going over the front. And I'm going to try and incorporate that into all the pages. So now we're going to embellish the page. Here's the fun. We're going to decide what we're doing to the pages. And there are a million different ways that you can do this. And there is no right or wrong. Now, because I want that flap there, I keep bringing that flap to the front. So you'll see what I mean. So I decide to use this poppy stamp, and I stamped it out with black archival ink and fussy cut it around, lazy man's fussy cutting. And then I'm going to put the same flower on the flap. So when it covers it, it becomes part of it. And then when you open it up, it's going to show reveal. I'm going to glue everything down with my liquid matte medium. This is Liquitex Basics brand. And I'm just gluing them down, arranging one on top of the other to what looks good to me. And making sure that this is dry. Now I'm going to layer this same poppy on top. And do you see how I'm lining it up with what's underneath? And I'm tacking it down with tape just to get the right positioning. And then I decide, oh, I'm going to add a third one. So I'm basically covering up that entire flap with 3 of these poppy stamps. And I love this poppy stamp. It's a great larger size stamp that I find is really difficult to find these days. And I'm thinking, okay, I could put the sentiment there. I could put half of it here and half of it underneath. I'm unsure yet how that's going to work. And I figure it out as I go along. You don't need to have all the answers. So grabbing my matte medium, I'm gluing this down as it's placed. And I'm flipping it over the front one because remember, I want to line it up with the poppies that are underneath. And I'm being careful not to stick anything together that I don't want to stick together. So now we have a little bit of a door. Now that flap is going to read with each page, and I've designed it that way. You don't have to do that. That's optional, but I wanted to challenge myself. Now, initially I cut out these dragonflies right to the edge, And I discovered that I liked a white border. I think it's because the background is so colorful. So I do a little bit of fussy cutting, but you can see I've left a white border on them. So the second page, I am using dragonflies, and this is from Crafter's Companion, I believe. And again, it's a larger size dragonfly. It actually comes in the 2 sizes, which I absolutely love, but I love the big one. So I'm playing with sentiments that go with the dragonflies and going with the pages. And I chose to put the dragonflies on this page because I have that little bit of a swoosh pattern in the white, like moving air. So I'm doing a lot of fussy cutting. Most of that I did edit out, or I didn't even videotape. But again, reminding you that this is like doing 5 or 6 art journal pages. So there's lots of work to it. You could do a page or a section every night. And just playing with the orientation. There you see I'm taking that flip and flipping it over because I want this to all be hidden when the flap is closed, and when it's open it's going to reveal the entire page. So there was lots of taking that flap back and forth just to make sure. But again, I remind you, you don't have to do that. Gluing everything down with the matte medium. Now those dragonflies I've put over the edge where there's that pocket on the side, it goes over the edge. But I was careful not to put glue underneath it because I don't want it to stick and close the flap. You could choose to just close the flap totally if that's what you wanted. Now this page looked a little bit dark to me, so I grabbed this Jungle Vines stencil and I'm stenciling on with white acrylic paint. And I love this Jungle Vines stencil because it always gives such a wonderful sense of motion to the page. And I'm loving that. It definitely lightened it. Now, this stamp, you can see it's as big as my hand. I believe it's called Majestic Butterfly. And it is by Kaisercraft. The link will be in the description box. And I'm stamping it with black archival ink, and I've re-inked my stamp pad to get a dark print. And I'm not sure how many I'm going to use, but as usual, when I get out the ink and I'm stamping, I stamp more than what I think I need, and whatever's left goes in the stash, and it's ready to go for an art journal page or when I do like something like the Index a Card a Day challenge, and I want to have things already done. So I'm cutting those out again, leaving that white border. I also stamped out some of those little butterflies. Those were from the dollar store. I have 4 butterflies, and then I'm putting the sentiment in there, grateful, thankful, blessed. It's on the back of the flap, and I'm designing it so that you will see that when every section is opened. So I didn't want to leave it blank. These are peel and stick. These sentiments I printed on Avery stickers. And the sentiments that I've used here come from various sentiment packs that I do sell. And if you're interested, you can email me at creativekatie@gmail.com to ask information about the sentiment packs. You can also check out, there are 2 videos that show exactly what's in every one of the packs. So now that that's down, I'm taking again that flap, going back because I want part of the words to be shown. and then part of it's going to be hidden when the flap is closed, and when it's open, you're going to be able to read the rest of the quote. I think doing this is a very similar if you do junk journals. That's not something I've done yet. Then I'm doing the front page with a quote, and then part of the quote is hidden. So here is the finished project, and I absolutely love it. But before we go through and look at the finished product more closely, I just want to talk a little bit about some of the finishing work that I did. I did some shading, some edging, and some line work on all parts of the page, and I just want to walk you through that now. I didn't videotape it because one, this video is getting long enough, and two, you've seen me doing that in many other videos, but I did want to mention that I did spend some time making things pop and stand off the page. So I'm just going to walk you through that quickly. First off, I grabbed my angle brush and my black acrylic paint, and I did edging on the outsides of all the pages. So I edged along here and here. Now I didn't put edging, black edging down the middle lines here because of the way that I had composed this section. I didn't want a black line in the middle. Now if I had done this as one page and this as a distinctly different page, and I didn't want it reading together, I may have put that dark shading line down the middle. Does that make sense? So I did the shading around here and around the edge there. Oh, and over here, this is the back of the flowers that I attached to the flap. It was white, and I decided that I'm going to grab the colors that I use in the background and I put those on and did a little bit of stenciling so that when it's opened like this, we just didn't have that white in there. So with the shading and along the back, the outside edge as well. What else did I do? Still with my angle brush and the floating acrylic technique, I shaded around the flowers as well as on the flowers. And I can see I've missed out some parts, so I'll be coming back doing that. And I also did some shading on the dragonflies. Now I've chosen to keep my focal images black and white because the background was so colorful, but I did want to oomph them up a bit with the shading, and that's what the shading did. Here on these butterflies, I didn't get a, here's one of them. It wasn't quite as an opaque black as I would have liked, so I took my liner brush and black acrylic paint that I thinned down just a bit, and I painted that all so it was a little bit more opaque. Then I did some line work on the sentiments that were in squares. I outlined it with my Sakura glaze pen. Now I realized as I was doing it, the slower you go, the thicker the line is, the bolder. So that is a good tip. I also use the Sakura glaze on these butterflies just to brighten them up and make them more opaque black, and they're glossy because that one you technically can be reading it with every single page. So I just wanted that to pop a little bit. So that's the finishing that I did. So let's flip through the finished project. This is an envelope flip book, an envelope art journal. We can call it whatever we want. And I definitely will be making more of these. In fact, I have an idea to doing another one with a set theme. So each little book will have its own theme. You could do it vintage, but you're going to have to come back to see what I'm going to do with that. So I worked to keep this flap so it can show with all of them. And it hides some of the page and then you reveal that page. And I like that element. It's a little harder to work around because you have to constantly be thinking about that, but it's a cute little detail. So this says, what is meant to be will be. So you open it up and you see this grateful, thankful, blessed. And I like how that all reads together. So that becomes one of the pages. Then I have my dragonfly page, and we have trust the journey, just begin, dream big, and then if you open it, dragonflies appear when angels are near. So this is like almost 4 different art journal pages, and I like that look. And then when we close it, again, and I'm putting the flap out because I've made it so that the flap can be closed or opened. And I have believe in the possibilities. All great changes are preceded by chaos. And then we have the butterflies here. Now, if you remember, with this envelope book, you have pockets. You have one here, one on this side, as well as one on the end. So I'm thinking that this would make perfect happy mail or a birthday card. And depending if it's a creator that you're sending it to, you could stuff goodies in there. I can put another little book in there. I can put for a creator some embellishments, some stamped images in one of those pockets, and some gel prints or collage papers that I've made. And that can be tucked in there. And I would work probably to make sure that that was all hidden. So even with that being full, this closes nicely. If you have a brad system, you can figure out a way of closing this. I don't have those kind of things, and I don't think it's necessary. Now this can be popped into the mail and sent, and I think someone might absolutely love receiving this. In fact, I thought of the idea of having the stamped images that I used here and the sentiments and sending that to a friend and challenge them to make their own envelope booklet using the embellishments that I've given and whatever backgrounds they want, and then they send that forward. So it's kind of a random act of kindness moving forward, and they would fill it with embellishments and sentiments that the next person would get to use. Just a fun idea. So keep watching. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber. I will definitely be doing another envelope flip book art journal again.